And I'm excited to welcome the final speaker of the day, Suri Chen, Principal Data Scientist from PepsiCo, who you already know from the panel. Suri will continue the discussion that Dee started at the beginning of the day about media mix modeling and talk about Bayesian and frequentist approaches to media mix modeling specifically. And again, we'll have our networking reception after this and plenty of time for more questions and conversation. Thank you. Please give a big round of applause for Suri.
Can I take it off? Okay, I can. Yeah, thanks for joining this session. I mean, it's the end of the day, and I was afraid it's going to be too technical, so I'm going to put it easy and breezy, okay? But before that, okay. A little bit background of our team. So I work in PepsiCo e-commerce, and in e-commerce, we serve over hundreds brands to more than 30 customers. Like you will see Pepsi products sold in Walmart, Amazon. That's all under our brand. So in our team, we have our own sales, supply chain, finance, and marketing team. Our data and technology team basically provides all the data infrastructure and all this machine learning capability to support their decisions, so making their life easier. Today I'm going to share one of a project we work with our marketing team, and it's quite a journey, and we wanted to share some learning experience and what we have learned and some recommendation for you when you are conducting media mix modeling. So as an e-commerce business, or our marketing efforts are concentrated on digital platforms. Take Amazon.com as an example. Our marketing products include sponsor search. Basically, you bid for the paid search, and banners and display ads. And 85% of our investment is actually on the paid search. And the real questions, just like every marketer is wanting to know how much impact actually driven by our digital marketing investment. And furthermore, we wanted to answer the 3 key questions. I think, sorry about the slides, a little bit reformat. But 3 key questions, they are, first, how different parts of the business driving our sales. The business could be our supply chain operations, could be our price decisions, could be even the macro economics, right? And with this understanding, we wanted to see whether we could optimize our budget allocations, right? Beyond addressing the marketing decision, could we allocate addressing the supply chain decision? Should we make a better pricing decisions? And furthermore, we could probably do some predictive analytics to forecast some different scenario to prepare some future changes. Do we have a new slide? Sorry. Yeah, this is a new slide. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because there are 2 versions, and this one is just like really basic. But yeah, I will make sure I talk this through. So tackle these problems, we basically solving a causal inference problem, right? And there are 2 general approach or 2 strategy. Either we do some analysis on historical data, or we're collecting new data by launching some randomized experiment. And in our project, we go for doing the marketing mix modeling. What it is, I believe most of people here might have some concept of MMM. It is a statistical technique to quantify the impact of various vectors of marketing inputs on our sales performance. But mathematically, you just imagine the sales as a function of all the variables you put in, your marketing spend, your price changes, the inflations. So we conduct this kind of analysis by doing some correlation analysis, and usually we use technical regressions. And the MMM usually try to decompose the total sales into your baseline sales and a part of incremental sales. The incremental could be negative, could be positive. So the base sales basically is if today nothing changed, the life is just going. There's no price change. There's no pandemic. There's no marketing. What do you expect from your organic growth? And the incremental sales coming from your every decisions. So the MMM is trying to help you to decompose it into different parts. And as you heard about the panel this morning, they use a randomized experiment. So you might ask me why we choose MMM except for go for golden standard approach, right? Launch experience is better. We collect new data. But in practical, it might not suit in many cases. For example, we have hundreds brands. It's impractical to launch experience for each single. Oh, okay. Thank you. But yeah, I can keep talking without this. Yeah, so in reality, it's impossible to launch hundreds of experiments for different products. Thank you. And also, we might need to collect a lot of sample, a large sample, or launch an experiment for a long time if the signal is really weak. And that happened for some of our big brands, right? If you're searching layers, probably a lot of sales is coming from organic. It's not really related to your marketing. So we might need to collect a lot of sample. And we might lose some opportunity costs when we are conducting or we are having our control group. On the other side, we could also launch some potential outcome analysis, causal effect models, but that is really limited under the scenario that you don't have enough data. For example, if your reporting is in weekly level and you have 4 years data, how many data points do you have? Probably just a little bit over 200, right? So, and you need to consider a lot of selection bias. So that makes this kind of analysis also harder. So we go for MMM, and we land into this favorite part. I know everyone loves math. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, this is the last session. Don't go crazy. Yeah, so how do we build this marketing mix modeling, right? Remember our mission. We want to decompose the total sales into different buckets. And in our scenario, we defined our base sales as trend plus seasonality. And we defined our incremental sales, we take into consideration as marketing spend, especially paid search spend, and the price change, out of stock, and inflation rate. We also take holiday into consideration. And we could have built a linear regression model to model how they interact with sales. However, we choose to go one step further. We adapt one nonlinear transformation, which is inspired by a paper released from Google in 2017. And the nonlinear transformations basically integrate these two very critical concepts of marketing effects, or how consumers interact with marketing spend. One is called ad-stock effect, another one is diminishing returns. And ad-stock effect is basically saying, today you see an app, you probably wouldn't buy it right now. You probably will consider it several days and come back later and execute your purchase, which will result in you are observing the contribution delayed from your spend. And the diminishing return is telling you the return on your investment does not grow linearly with your spend. If you put $100 and 10,000 and 100,000, you don't expect the same return rate, right? At some point, you might see even in decrease rate of your returns. So we need to consider that factor as well. So this is a really small France over there, but we use this nonlinear transformation formula as a set of parameters to learn to combine this effect together in our model. So this model helps us better understand consumer behavior in reaction on the spend. All right, so now we have the model. How do we actually learn it? And when we are landing this page, I don't know whether here we have two teams, Frequentist team and the Bayesian team, because usually they don't really get along. So I have to say, when I was in college, I used to work with neural network and music generation. I'm a loyal Frequentist team. But when I started working in corporate, when I'm looking at the data, 200 data points, how am I going to do the machine learning? So I started to switch to Bayesian team. So a little bit concept about this two approach, right? So frequentist approach or frequentist philosophies are, they think every parameters, unknown parameters, they are fixed. You know exactly how much contribution for each of the factors might be. And all of your observations, they are random events. So they wanted to find the best suite of parameters that give you the good predictions aligned with your observations. However, Bayesian approach telling you, hey, I don't really know, if I spend $1, today it might return $2, tomorrow it might $3, next day it might 2.5. It's not really fixed. So it's coming from distributions. So the unknown parameters is a random variables. We wanted to learn this distribution. So after learning, the more data points you collect, the more you can approximate this distribution. So this is a philosophy for the Bayesian approach. And we are going to see how we implement both approach and how the results go. So first of all, we started to learn this model by using a frequency approach. And keep in mind, this is a nonlinear regression problem, so it doesn't have a closed-form solution. We cannot just put in a linear regression and call fit and train and predict. So we kind of need to use some heuristic or numerical optimal solver to find the optimal set of parameters. But then it introduces this difficulties when we are learning. Why? Because it might lead into many different local minimums, meaning every time you learn it, it might give you different set of parameters. And it's really depends on how you set up the model, how you initiate guess. So it leads to tons of hyperparameter training and find the best optimal strategy to find the solutions. So we move into the Bayesian approach. The way we implement it, we took this lightweight measurement package which is built on top of Jackson and Pyro. And it's a great setup to help you learn your marketing mix model. But I have to emphasize here the really important part of learning Bayesian model is setting the prior. As we say, right, that each parameter, they are coming from a distribution. It's really important to set a prior. And it's also good, setting a prior basically is a good opportunity to let you put your experience in your model, right? If you assume the media effects will never go negative, it will always give me dollar back, then we could make it a half normal and just make it, it have to be positive. One of the exercise we did is using our AMC data, Amazon Marketing Cloud data. We analyze our conversion rate. We figure out that 95% of users will execute their purchase within 7 days after they click it. So we use this kind of data point to fit prior distribution for our ad stock effects. And that also goes into the model. And that things actually help us to convert the model faster and also more accurate. So what did we learn? So first of all, our model did a pretty good job in the predictions on the total sales. And in the reporting period, we got less than 3% error. We also can visualize each of the driver, how they contribute to the baseline. You can see all this increase or decrease from the baseline and finally landing into our observation. And with this tool, okay, there's a little bit lag. So with this tool, it's pretty, if you just go through this equation, it's pretty simple, but it has a lot of potential and there's a lot of insight in it. One of the analysis we did from this model is analyzing our attributed sales and incremental sales. So most of metric you might get from media marketing agency or you might get directly from a sales report are attributed sales. What does it tell you? When you click an app, and you purchase it at some point, you will count it as attributed sales. But imagine that you go to Amazon.com and you search layers. There are two top products. They are exactly the same. One is a sponsor product, another is not. Which one you will click? You might click randomly which one, or you might keep the top one. But you actually wanted to buy it, so it shouldn't count it as incremental. It's not because you spend money on the ads, so the user, the consumer buy it. It's actually coming from organic. So the incremental sales is actually measure the effectiveness of a sales driving from your spend. So we figure out that only 50% of reporting metrics should be counted as incremental sales, and the rest of 50 just organic growth. And with this insight, we could do further down into different layers of analysis and inform a better decision of how we optimize our spend. Analysis we did is a due to analysis. Due to analysis is basically tell you, I know company always like to do year-over-year comparison. It's an easy index. And with our analysis, we could break it down into buckets, right? Because you know how each driver contributed to your total sales. So for example, this brand, we see from 2021 to 2022, the total sales grew 50%. But you know what? Without anything happened, we could have grown 20,000 more. And with our spend and investment on this sponsor search, we could grow 7,000 more. But because of the price change and because of out of stock and supply chain inefficient, we are actually losing some dollars. So this kind of comparison could help you, slice your business into more detail. All right, so this is great. All the models, great. We learned the model. We have the pretty waterfall chart. So could we do it better, or is there anything that we need to think about? We do, and this is an amazing part of this project because the whole MMN exercise is a continual learning process, and we work really close to our marketing, finance team, sales team to understand how to interpret it better. So remember it, there's a correlation analysis, not causal analysis. There's no way to tell you 10%, 50% loss due to the inflation. Is it too much? Is it too less? So we need to really understand the different factors or understand how to interpret it or explain the model. So one of the big things is the feature scaling. So if you are a data scientist, machine learning engineer, feature scaling in your cases usually come into place because you want them to be in the same scale, so you could pick up the information, in the same weight, right? You don't penalize one or you don't emphasize another too much. But in our case, feature scaling really tells the story. For example, you don't want to see auto stock have a positive impact. How do we do that, right? So we need to scale that in a positive. We wanted to scale them in all positive, all the auto stock input as a positive. So you cannot use standardization because you will have a negative value and they have a positive value. In your report, sometimes you will see some positive effect of auto stock. It doesn't make sense. So I think in this case, feature scaling really tell you how do you choose the baseline. And the second one is outliers management. Outliers in this scenario will really affect how you learn the baseline. One of the example here, we oversee a period of time that we don't have a sales probably coming from the auto stock. We have a big spike, which we don't know what happened. There's no holiday there, no marketing campaign. So this kind of noise might bias your model to pick up the real trend. It might go crazily increase or crazily decrease. So I think one good practice is always think about how do we smooth it? How do we dealing with this the outliers? And the other things, as I said, there's no way to verify your buckets right or not. So we really need to think more in a consumer way, a behavior way, more like economics point of view, more like an art than a science, to understand, for example, the price. How if you have 2% decrease because of price, you need to think what consumer actually think when they see price changing, right? One really straightforward example, if you're taking the average price, you are not treating the price movement because of promotion or because of the base price change. So in this case, you might think, hey, I actually probably need to bring different price point as an indicator to consumer incentives in correlated to your sales, right? So all these factors keep the project moving, and probably there's no point to stop. No, I'm kidding. So we will come back to that topic later. But yeah, so what my insights, my key takeaway from working on this project are the three. We are still learning on it, still working on this project. But I think the first thing I wanted to that you know is you really need to choose your model, choose your tool from your query, depends on your setting, depends your data availability, and depends your assumption. And the frequentist approach usually can give you simple way and more interpretability to find the result. But Bayesian approach help you work on small data set and enable you to incorporate some prior experience. And in MMN, in MMN, as I say, explainability is a key, right? And the feature engineering really help you to increase that explainability. And working with stakeholder definitely help you calibrate your model. Definitely help you to deliver more insightful information for your model. And lastly, when should we come to an end? When should we sign off this project? I think come back to this morning, the topic experiment, right? MMN is a diagnostic analytics, and you produce a model which gives you some predictions. But a lot of time you need to conduct actual experiment or collect actual data point to test your hypothesis, and which will come up as a feedback to your model again. So yeah, I think we never have an end. But yes, that's all I have today. Thank you.